My elder sister slept with my husband, then called me to confess from the hospital bed. She called me from a hospital bed at 2 a.m., my own blood, my elder sister, with a confession that split my world in two. And the worst part, I had spent the entire day praying for her recovery. If you've never had the ground ripped from beneath your feet by someone you trusted with your whole heart, stay with me, because this story will shake you to your core. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, because the stories we tell on this channel will stay with you long after they end. Her name was Ngozi Chukwuka. We called her Ngozi. She was 4 years older than me, and she was everything I wanted to be when I was a little girl growing up in Newi. Ngozi was tall, graceful, the kind of woman who walked into a room and immediately owned it without trying. Our mother used to say that God had poured extra portions of beauty and boldness into Ngozi on the day she was born, and that by the time he got to me, Amaka, he had used the rest for patience and quiet strength. I used to think that was a compliment. I used to wear that like a badge. Patience and quiet strength. Oh, Amaka. We grew up in a compound with a mango tree that separated our father's house from the path to the market. Our father, Chief Ogbefi Chukwuemeka, was a man of moderate means and enormous pride. He had 2 wives, my mother, Chidima, and the second wife, Uloma, who gave him 4 boys and no girls. My mother gave him 2 girls, me and Ngozi, and he loved us the way a man loves beautiful things he doesn't fully understand, with distance, with admiration, but rarely with warmth. Ngozi learned early how to wrap men around her finger. She learnt it first from watching our father, then from the men who came to our compound pretending to visit, but really coming to catch a glimpse of her. By the time she was 22, she had broken the hearts of at least 7 men in our village alone. But Ngozi was not a bad person. She was complicated. There's a difference. She had a hunger in her that she never quite understood herself, a need to be seen, chosen, desired. I didn't understand that then. I do now, but understanding it doesn't erase what she did. I met Obia Gili, Obi, my husband, at a trade fair in Onitsha when I was 26. He was standing near a display of hand-woven fabrics, arguing politely with a vendor about the price of asoke. And something about the way he argued, firmly but with a smile that never left his face, pulled me toward him like gravity. We talked for 3 hours that afternoon. By evening, we had exchanged numbers. By the following weekend, he had come to Newi to see me, and by the end of that year, he had done the traditional rite and asked for my hand. Obi was not the most handsome man I had ever seen. He was average in height, slightly built, with eyes that were too expressive for his own good, eyes that showed every thought before his mouth could shape the words. But he was kind, deeply, consistently kind. And in a world that had shown me that kindness in men was rarer than gold, I held on to him with both hands. Ngozi danced at my wedding. She danced better than anyone, and she gave a toast that made everyone cry. And she hugged me at the end of the night and whispered, "You deserve this, Amaka. You deserve all of this." And I believed her. I believed every single word. We married in November. By the following July, Ngozi had lost her job in Lagos and came to stay with us in Aoka while she figured out her next move. Just a few weeks, she said, maybe a month. We had a spare room and she was my sister. And Obi, because he was Obi, said, of course, welcome her, she's family. She stayed for 5 months. I want to be very clear about something. During those 5 months, I noticed nothing, not a single thing that alarmed me. Ngozi was warm with Obi, yes, but Ngozi was warm with everyone. She cooked for us sometimes, teased Obi about his obsession with Arsenal, sat with me in the evenings while I graded my students' papers. She was my sister. She was my friend. She was my person. And then, one morning in December, Ngozi packed her bag and said she had found a new position in Abuja and would be leaving the next day. She seemed off, quieter than usual, avoiding my eyes in a way I told myself was just the emotion of leaving. I hugged her at the gate. She held on a few seconds longer than normal. I thought she was just going to miss me. She left, life continued. Obi and I settled back into our quiet, good life. We were trying for a baby. Things felt steady, hopeful. And then, 14 months later, at 2 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang. It was Ngozi. She was in a hospital in Abuja. Appendix, she said. Emergency surgery that afternoon. And now she was lying in the recovery ward, awake and staring at the ceiling. And she needed to tell me something. Her voice was strange. Not the post-surgery strangeness. Something deeper. Something older. Amaka. And then she was quiet for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Ngozi, I'm here. Talk to me. I need you to forgive me. My stomach moved before my brain did. Forgive you for what? You are scaring me. Another silence. Then, Obi and I, something happened while I was staying with you. Amaka, it was not one time. I need you to know the truth. I have been carrying this and it is eating me alive. And I was lying here tonight and I thought, what if I had died today and never told you? What if I had taken this and buried it and let you live inside a lie? I couldn't. I can't. I sat up in the bed. Obi was awake beside me. I could hear him breathing. I got up and walked to the corridor and I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and I listened to my sister dismantle my entire world in the space of 11 minutes. She told me everything. She told me it started the third week when I had traveled to Enugu for a teacher's workshop and left them in the house. She told me Obi had been distant with her at first. She told me, and this was the part that drove a blade through me, that she was the one who pushed, that she had wanted what I had, not just Obi, not just the marriage, the security, the steadiness, the being chosen. She said she had spent so many years being wanted by men who didn't stay, and watching me, quiet, patient Amaka, build something real and warm and permanent. And something in her had broken open with jealousy she didn't even know she was holding. She said it lasted 4 weeks. She said it ended the week before she left. She said Obi had come to her and told her it had to stop, that he loved his wife, that he was ashamed, that he needed her to leave. She said she wanted to hate him for saying that but couldn't because she knew he was right. She said she was in therapy in Abuja for the past 9 months. She said she was telling me now because she couldn't spend one more day pretending. When she finished, all I said was, "Is Obi awake?" "Who?" "Obi?" "Amaka, is there anything else you haven't told me?" "No, I swear on our mother's grave, that is everything. I have to go." I hung up. I sat on the floor for a long time. The compound was so quiet I could hear the generator from the neighbor's house 3 doors down. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear, somehow, the sound of the last 14 months rearranging themselves inside my memory. Every dinner, every laugh, every prayer we had prayed together asking God for a baby. Every morning Obi had kissed my forehead before going to work. All of it was shifting now, tilting like furniture in an earthquake. I did not wake him up that night. I want you to understand that. I made a choice, and that choice matters to this story. I went back to bed. I lay beside the man I had married, and I stared at the ceiling, and I made myself breathe. I didn't sleep, but I breathed. In the morning, I made breakfast, yam porridge with stockfish, the way Obi liked it. He came into the kitchen still half asleep, and he smiled at me and said, You started cooking early, and I put the food on the table, and I sat across from him and I said very calmly, Ngozi called me last night. He looked up. I watched his face. I watched the exact moment the blood drained from it. I watched his eyes do the thing they always did, show everything before the mouth could catch up. And in that one moment, before he said a single word, I knew that every syllable my sister had spoken was the truth. He opened his mouth. I raised one hand. Don't lie to me, Obiageli. I am asking you to give me the one thing you owe me above everything else. Don't lie. He closed his mouth. He looked down at the food, and then he looked back up at me, and his eyes were full of water, and he said, I'm sorry, Amaka. Just that. I'm sorry. I stood up. I walked to our bedroom. I sat on the bed and I stared at the wall, and I thought about my father, who had loved us from a distance, and my mother, who had taught me that patience was a virtue, and Ngwovi, who had always wanted everything I had, and Obi, who had kind eyes and still done this. I thought about how I had spent my whole life being the quiet one, the patient one, the one who held on, and whether any of that had protected me from a single thing. Now, I need to stop here for 1 second, because what I'm about to tell you next is the part that completely changes the shape of this story. The part that, when I first heard it, made me put my phone down and just sit in the silence. Because what Ngozi confessed that night at the hospital was not actually the whole truth. That was only the version she thought was the whole truth. If you are still watching, don't go anywhere. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because the people who have been here from the beginning know that this channel never gives you half a story. Here is what neither Ngozi nor I knew that morning at the breakfast table. About 6 weeks after Ngozi left Auka, Obi had received a message from Ngozi. Not a romantic message, something else entirely. She had sent him a photograph, a pregnancy test, positive, and underneath it, 3 words, it might be yours. Obi had not come to me. He had not told me. He had instead gone silent, responded to Ngozi privately, and spent the next 3 weeks in a private panic, trying to determine what the truth was. Ngozi, for her part, had been genuinely uncertain. She had been seeing someone else briefly in Lagos before she came to Auka, and the timing was unclear. There had been no baby in the end. She had miscarried at 9 weeks. And when she did, Obi seemingly closed that chapter in his mind and decided, in the extraordinary selfishness of a man who does not want to face what he has done, that if there was no child, there was no need for confession. He carried that specific secret for an additional year beyond what Ngozi confessed, while I was praying for our own child, while I was lying next to him asking God to bless us, while I was the good wife, the patient wife, the wife who held on. I found this out not from Obi, not from Ngozi. I found it out 3 weeks after that breakfast, when Ngozi, still in Abuja, still recovering, called me again. She had been in a therapy session, she said, and her therapist had asked her if she had been fully honest with me, fully honest with everyone, and Ngozi had broken down. And then she told me about the pregnancy, and about Obi's knowledge, and about the year of silence, and the year of lies on top of lies on top of a life I thought was real. I want to tell you that I screamed. I want to tell you that I broke things, but that is not what happened. What happened was I sat very still for a very long time, and then I said to Ngozi, "Thank you for telling me," and I hung up, and I called my mother. My mother, Chidinma, was 61 years old and had the kind of faith that made you believe mountains actually moved when she prayed. I told her everything, all of it. The affair, the pregnancy scare, the hidden secret, the year of lies on top of lies on top of a life I thought was real. Had tried several times to talk to me fully, to explain, to beg. I had not been ready. But after Ngozi's visit, I was ready. I sat with Obi on the veranda that evening. The sun was going down over the compound, and the light was that specific amber gold that Oka gets in Harmattan season. I asked him to tell me everything, not the version he thought I already knew. Everything. He did. He talked for a long time, and his voice broke several times, and he told me about the pregnancy message, and the weeks of panic, and the miscarriage, and the decision to stay silent, and he told me, this is the part I had not expected, that the silence had cost him too, that he had spent a year unable to look at himself clearly, that he had prayed every day for something he knew he did not deserve. I said, "You should have told me." He said, "Yes." I said, "You let me pray for a child while carrying a secret about one." He said, "Yes, and I will carry the shame of that for the rest of my life." I looked at him for a long time, and then I said the thing I had spent weeks arguing with myself about, the thing my mother's words had been steering me toward, the thing I was not sure I was strong enough to mean. I'm not leaving, but this marriage has to become something different now, something honest, something we build from scratch on top of the ruins of this, or we don't build it at all. He said, "Tell me what you need." We went to counseling, both of us, together, for the better part of a year. I will not romanticize it for you. There were sessions that left me more broken than I arrived. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I had made the right choice, if what I called strength was actually fear, if what I called forgiveness was actually an inability to let go. These are questions I still carry, but I carry them differently now. Ngozi and I rebuilt something too, slowly. It looked nothing like what we had before, and I think that is appropriate. What we had before was built on a version of us that was no longer true. What we have now is quieter, more careful, honest in a way that sometimes hurts to maintain. She came to Oka for Christmas that year. She did not stay in our house, she stayed with a cousin nearby, but she came. And on Christmas morning, she sat at our table and we ate together. And at some point, she looked at me across the food and said nothing, but her eyes said everything she could not shape into words. And I looked back at her and said nothing too. There is a thing the elders say in Igbo, "Onye wetara oji wetara ndu." The one who brings kola brings life. In our tradition, kola is not just a nut. It is a covenant. It is an offering. It is a declaration that despite everything, despite hunger, despite distance, despite the failures of love, I am still here. I still choose you. I don't know that I have fully forgiven Ngozi. I don't know that forgiveness is a destination you arrive at and plant a flag in. I think it's more like a road. You keep walking it, and some days the walking is easier, and some days you are crawling, and the destination keeps moving, but the walking itself is the thing that keeps you human. I don't know that I have fully forgiven Obi either, but I know that the man who sat with me in that counselor's office week after week, who answered every question with his whole chest, who did not run from the weight of what he had done, that man was trying. And I know that I am not the quiet, patient Amaka who had no voice. I found a voice in all of this, a loud one that knows how to say, "This is what I need. This is what I require. This is the line." I think that is the thing I most want you to take from this story. Not the betrayal, though it was real and it was devastating. Not the reconciliation, though it was hard-won and imperfect. The thing I want you to take is this: your pain does not have to make you smaller. It can make you clearer. It can make you know yourself in a way you never would have otherwise. The ground cracking open beneath you can, if you survive the fall, reveal a depth in you that you didn't know existed. Ngozi is in Abuja now. She is in a relationship, a quiet, serious one, with a man who appears, from everything I can tell, to treat her the way she always deserved to be treated. She sends me photos sometimes, little things, a meal she cooked, a sunset from her window. I send her back emojis and sometimes I send back voice notes. We are learning a new language together, my sister and I, one that has no room for old silences. Obi and I are still married. We have a daughter now. Her name is Chisong. God is with me. And she was born in the dry season with her father's expressive eyes and her grandmother's Chidima's laugh. She does not know this story. She may never know all of it, but the love she was born into is honest love, built on truth, earned rather than assumed. And I think that is the best inheritance I can give her. There is one more thing. On the night I got that hospital call, the night Ngozi first confessed, before I went back to lie down beside Obi, I stood in the dark corridor for a long moment and I prayed. I did not pray for strength or wisdom or even peace. I prayed for clarity. I said, God, let me see clearly. Whatever is true, let me see it. Whatever is hidden, let me know it. Whatever I am supposed to do, let me understand it. He answered that prayer, not all at once, not in a way that was comfortable, but he answered it, one painful revelation at a time, until I was standing in full light, broken and blinking, yes, but able to see, truly see. Sometimes the prayer you are most afraid to pray is the one that saves your life. If this story moved you, if it reached into something real and pulled it toward the surface, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have been with us this whole time, riding every twist and turn of this story without going anywhere, then you already know why this channel is worth subscribing to. We don't do shallow, we don't do easy, we do real. We do human. We do the kind of stories that remind you that you are not alone in whatever you are carrying. Subscribe. Leave a comment below. I want to know, what would you have done? Would you have stayed or walked away? Would you have forgiven your sister? Tell me in the comments, and I will see you in the next story.